Hello, all you Book Plus insiders. My name is Jen Geigel Johnson, and I'm thrilled to be able to be here with you today. I was happy to offer to speak to you for a second and to answer your questions. It's my hope that we can get some more authors on here and participating a little bit and chatting with all of you in the comments even. I feel like this is a great group and an awesome opportunity. Bookshelf is one of my favorite apps. Love it, and I love when they tell me a new book is downloaded. I appreciate this group a lot. I like that there's a lot of tech resolving going on also, which is always important. So I'm here today, like I said, to answer questions and to talk a little bit about my process and to participate with you here. If you want to ask me more questions in the comments of this thread, I'll be around when it gets posted, and I'm happy to chat with you. I'm available on Facebook. I'm always readily available. I like to interact. My author page is author Jen Geigel Johnson. And I have a personal profile, also, but I feel like the best way to contact me to talk about books is through my author page. And let me just show you a book cover so you know that's my name. Oh, backwards. But there I am, Jen Geigel Johnson. You can find me on Facebook. So I've written quite a few books. Well, I say that because it feels like a lot. It's a lot of words, right? A lot of effort. I've written these many books for Covenant Communications. And last I checked, all except one was available on Bookshelf Plus. So the reason the one isn't is because it hasn't launched yet. So here's a sneak peek. This, A Foreign Crown, is coming August 3rd. It will be available at Deseret Book and Seagull and online. And soon after, it'll show up on Bookshelf Plus. I've noticed that there's a little bit of lag time between launch. So that's enough about me. I'm really happy to be here. I write historical romance, historical fiction, and let's get to your first question. How long does it typically take for you to write a book from the time you decide that what it'll be about, and what is the process? I enjoy your books. First, thank you for that compliment. The tiniest little praise for an author goes a really long way. So I really appreciate you saying you enjoy my books. A lot of my heart goes in them, and I work really hard. So it depends on the book, but usually these books I write for Covenant, about a year. I mean, there have been books that I've written faster, but then there's a lot of editing that's involved, right? So if you include all the editing and all of the drafting and everything, it's about a year that these books take for me to write. So there's also a significant amount of research that's involved. So this book, A Foreign Crown, took a little less than a year, but this is my fifth book, my fifth full novel with Covenant, and I had some of this stuff I had researched before. So I already had a lot of the background in my brain, and I knew what I wanted to do. Also, I've been planning it for a long time. So I kind of been saving information as I get it and thinking of characters as I go. So it did take less. I think this probably took 8 months, maybe 6 to 8 months. But that didn't, and then add another month on there for editing and things. But I'm really excited for you to read this. It's about, there's some royalty involved. So it's what I call it is my Regency Royal. So what's your favorite area of history that you have not written about? That is a great question because I love history, and I didn't major in it, and I wish I would have, but I love, lately, I really like Civil War. I'm into Civil War lately. I really want to learn more about it. I might write a book in it. I just really like Civil War. I'm very intrigued by a specific time in history in Czechoslovakia. So this might sound kind of funny, but history. I love the time period where they were able to kick out the Nazi takeover and declare themselves free. It's this brief moment right before communism took over. So there was this moment in dear Czechoslovakia where they were great, and they were the only democratic state earlier. They were only democratic state in all of Europe for a while there. I'm just proud of them. I have Czechoslovakian ancestors, and so I'm intrigued by that period of history. I love ancient history. I love early church history, early meaning the 1200s, the 1100s, the thousands. I'm fascinated by the time period after Christ died, where they're struggling. Not sure what Christianity means. I love that time period. I also like Greek and Roman time period. I like all the time periods? Anyway, I'll stop there, but those are the ones I'm really interested in. And if I'm interested in it, it probably means in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I want to write a book. So I'm intrigued by quite a few things. Do you usually know how your story will end before you start writing it? And if you do know how it will end, have you ever changed the ending after writing the rest of the story? Yes and no. So I don't usually know how it ends completely. Usually when I start a book, I'm what's called a discovery writer, and that means that I do not outline every part and I don't plot out the whole book. But I usually write with a story structure in mind. So for example, I know what needs to happen in the beginning of a story, and I know by the middle of the book what should have happened so far and what needs to happen going forward. So I'm that kind of a writer, and so when I begin a book, I know the characters pretty well, not perfectly, but I know what they want. I know things that stand in their way, some of their weaknesses. I know if it's a romance, I know how the two will eventually make a perfect whole, but or a more complete whole, not a perfect whole. I don't always know the end. I'll tell you what though, my very first book, The Nobleman's Daughter, has a lot of my heart. I love this book, and I'll tell you this, your question applies specifically to this book. I was writing this thinking I was going to write a normal Regency romance. Think Jane Austen. Darcy and Elizabeth go through some trials and they fall in love. That was going to be a book similar to this one. But as I was writing it, towards the beginning, I realized that in England there was a lot more going on than just the wealthy people falling in love and going to balls and dances and things. And I thought, what's going on with the servants? How did England become more of the free state that it is today? What happened, you know? And then as I researched, I realized that right during the middle of Regency time period is right when all the change was starting to happen. And the books that we usually read don't address it at all. We are talking about a specific tiny group of people typically. And I decided then that I needed to include this process. And when I discovered a thing called the Peterloo Massacre, and I know that sounds pretty deep and dark, massacre for a romance, but I discovered what happened to a good group of people that stood up for themselves and asked for freedom. And they were brave and they were good. And I realized they were almost forgotten. And it touched me, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned them as another talking point in my book. So this book became a very, very passionate book for me, and it has a lot of my love in it. So the ending totally changed. So the climax of their romance and the whole buildup of the story culminates and surrounds the Peterloo Massacre. And that's how that ending totally changed. But you still get a beautiful proposal scene. You have some fun declarations of love. And I tried really hard to keep a lot of the relationship part going, even though the passion of these people and what they had gone through was a strong theme for me. So great question. Last question, what helped you decide to be a writer? And when did you start writing stories? This is a great question too. I have always wanted to write stories from when I was very, very young, and a lot of authors I know answer the same. I studied English in college because it's the best way I knew how to learn how to write. They didn't have a writing emphasis back then, and I just did everything I could to pick up editing and writing skills, and I took classes online, and I followed and networked with smart authors. But then I started having my family, and I realized that for me, those two weren't meshing very well. And I put a lot of my writing dreams on hold. And I tell this story, it's actually very dear to my heart. And I put all those dreams up on a little shelf, and I just kind of, with just a tiny tear in my eye, stepped away, and I raised 6 children. And I'm not done raising them. But I raised them till the youngest was 5, and I kind of forgot about this dream of mine. And I was very involved in their lives and very active in all the different clubs and things that they're all involved in. And had an opportunity to write a play from a book for a local theater. And did that, watched the play come to life. It was Freedom Factor by Gerald Lund, by the way. If you've read that book, excellent, excellent book. I love it. So then it just ignited my dream. It reminded me that even though I might have forgotten, I really don't think our dear Heavenly Father forgot. So he brought it back for me and reminded me of this thing that brings me so much joy. And I loved the opportunity to then begin a novel. So I've been writing novels ever since, and I write all the time. I almost write full time. It's become a great love and a joy in my life. So that's my story about writing. Now, what can I tell you about, if any of you want to write also? I was asked to address that a little bit. What can I tell you guys about advice about anyone who wants to follow me on this path? My best advice is to read. If there's a type of book you want to write and you already know what type, and by type I mean genre, who's your audience, those kinds of things, then I want you to go find a whole bunch of books that do exactly that. And read and read and read and read and read and read till you've read hundreds of pages in the type of book you want to write. And then you'll understand what the reader expectation is, what the market demands, and what that type of book usually entails. And you'll have a firm grasp and understanding of that. And then I would go to writing conferences when COVID allows this again. And I would just begin and worry about editing later, and write and write and write, and don't stop until you write the end. Don't give up. Don't stop. And then get some really great friends that aren't the ones who just aren't your yes friends. You don't want the yes friends that just say, yes, good job, good job. You want the friends who will critically read and put on a really tough skin, and believe that every edit someone suggests is meant out of love for you, and let a whole bunch of people read what you wrote. Then go back and listen to the overall comments that are the same. Hire a really good editor to help you understand story structure, and go through it and see what you learn from the process. That's the best way to learn, I think, how to begin this process and write a book. And then as you go, be collecting friends, gather people around you who write, and get to know others. So I'm just happy to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Insider Group. I'm always around. I think I'll be around chatting a little bit with you and every now and then. Look for all of our great books as they show up on Plus. And I hope to see you on there. I hope to see all of us. Check out my new book when it comes out, August 3rd. And any of the others, I do believe they're all on there. So that'd be great. Thanks again.